SYS presents Adventures in Online Education.
Welcome, online educators. You're listening to SYS Presents Adventures in Online Education, where we discuss the realities of virtual education and bring you the best tools for the job from the experts, virtual teachers like you. I'm your host, Natalie Conway. My guest today is Bree North. She is a former online student and now attends Oregon State University in pursuit of her teaching license. She and I talked for over an hour together. This is the condensed version of our conversation with the biggest highlights for all online educators. Bree will uncover for us the benefits of chat over email and reveal how important open communication between teachers and students is. We'll learn about Socratic seminars and using online discussions to engage even the most introverted students. Finally, we'll discuss the power and benefit of shared control in online classes. Are you ready? Let's learn something new. Hi, Bree. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I know you are very busy, so thanks for taking time out to speak with me today. And I'm so curious how fall semester is going amid the pandemic. You're a college student and you're still taking classes, right?
It's just like high school for a lot of, so I've been talking with a lot of my old classmates, and because we went to online high school together, like this is so exactly what we used to do. It's very nostalgic. Like we're laughing with each other about the same old jokes again, about like the same old, oh yeah, the teacher forgot how to do this one thing, or like, oh yeah, the website was down so I couldn't upload my assignment kind of things. It's like, it's so nostalgic, and I feel like I kind of have a head start. It's not as difficult as it could be.
There's no learning curve for you. It's all old hat. Oh, that's good. So it's not stressing you out too much to be...
No, it's not that bad.
Good. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Well, let's dive in then. You already have kind of hinted that you have done a lot of online schooling prior. When did you start attending online school, and what made you choose the online option?
So I started when I was in 8th grade. I started 8th grade year, and the reason was because my dad, his job it started bouncing around. He works as a field service engineer, and he was going to like Arizona and he even went to Japan for a second, and he has lots of stories, but we just weren't seeing enough of him, and so his boss was finally like, just take your whole family with you.
Cool.
And so then we were moving around with him, and it's like, I can't go to school in one spot when I'm in Texas one day and, Colorado the next. What ended up happening is we went to Colorado, and I enrolled in online school because, the internet is everywhere. So I did 8th grade online, and we actually came back to Oregon for a little bit afterward, and I didn't want to go back to brick and mortar because, well, one of it was I was kind of shy. I didn't really want to deal with the people that I used to know. And the other reason was I kind of liked online school. There were challenges, but it kind of let me be an overachiever a bit. The funny thing was I was still going to an Oregon online school while I was, in Texas or whatever.
So ideal for a high schooler, yes. Yeah, I can only imagine. It's really nice. I find the flexibility as a teacher online to be really beneficial, but thinking of students like you, it's great that it suits families. They have unique situations or just special circumstances. And you don't even have to be moving in and out of state, but just around, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of people were doing like athletics things, like sports. I know there was like at least one person I knew who was a race car driver.
Wow.
And like, yeah, just like things that just don't fit with traditional school.
Right. I think I'm in Central Oregon. I think of kids maybe on the rodeo circuit or doing those kinds of things. And so, yeah, it's really neat to be able to take school, like you said, with you wherever you go. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Do you have some favorite memories from your time in online school?
I've got two that just like immediately pop out. And so one of them, I have to give a little context. So when I was in online high school, everyone was really concerned about privacy issues and keeping children safe from internet people. Because our school was on the internet, and you would think that just about anybody could potentially, have a security breach get into our classroom. So like the rule was hard. You do not share personal information with anybody in our classes. Like I think you would get in trouble. You'd get your chat privileges taken away for like months at a time if you even so much as like told your friend, hey, my name is Bob Bobbington on Facebook. Like you would get in trouble. It was a big deal.
Wow.
And I'm a huge extrovert. I love talking to people. And my digital arts classroom, I ended up making a friend in the chat. And we would private chat because the teachers can see the private chats. And there came a day when I was like, you know what? It would be worth it. Like, even if my chat privileges get taken away for like a year, it would be worth it just to get my email address through to this guy so that we can be friends. And so I did that, and I actually didn't even get in trouble. And I just think that teacher was super cool. There were other things about that class that I just loved.
Yes, I think that's so important too. Keeping in mind the humanity of our students. I completely empathize with your schools wanting to keep you safe and to keep your peers safe, right? But then there's still that human aspect. We can't just all be talking to each other through screens. We know how bad that goes, right, in the general public. So good on that high school teacher, to bend the rule, which was a real risk for that teacher too, I'm sure, but did so because they saw your humanity and empathized and thought it was a safe choice for you. I mean, I think teachers, we always need to remember that our online students are students first. And, we can't keep everyone safe from everything, but allowing that authentic connection, that's really important among peers and between teachers and students. Like you said, that flexibility with, you didn't do the assignment exactly how it was outlined, but you met the standard or exceeded it, and that teacher recognized that. I think that's great.
And I mean, the thing for me was before I had a friend in my school, I was on the internet anyway. Facebook lets you join when you're 13. And so even if my school was trying to keep me safe from the internet, I was on the internet anyway. So I had friends. I think my friend group was mostly on Tumblr. That might date me a little bit, but so it wasn't that I wasn't already being exposed to other people. So I think that me connecting to my students, my fellow students, it was even a safer choice.
You said you had two memories. What's your second favorite memory?
The second favorite one is probably a Mr. Neal thing. I had him for 3 years in a row. The second year, there were a ton of creative writing students. That's an elective that he taught, who were also in his honors literary arts general ed class. And what he wanted to do, he was like, all these students are having such great creative writing stories, right? Like, we should totally be showing this to the school, like the whole school. Like, we were posting it in discussion boards and we were commenting on it to other people just in the class. But he's like, we should make a whole magazine. And so he had the honors people who were also in creative writing create this entire literary magazine. And he started making us our own classrooms. He made us a Blackboard Collaborate room to meet in and to discuss how we were going to be making that. And we ended up making a kind of community in that. But and then the cool thing too was that with AP Lit, I mean, our teacher, it's a difficult class, right? And we have these questions. We want to talk about the books that we're reading. We don't understand what in the world just happened, and we can talk to each other about it now in a chat where Mr. Neal, our teacher, can see it and be like, you know what? I think I need to tell them just this one little quick thing. Yeah, it's actually that. And it was really easy, really accessible to be able to ask him those questions and to be able to joke with him too. It wasn't just about curriculum, but we would also be like, will you please show us a picture of your dog? We love your dog. Or joking about something that he'd said in class and we were like, haha, and he'd be like, yeah.
It seems like it's just less intimidating and the teacher's more accessible to you in that way. Do you think more or less of a teacher depending on how formal they are with you in a chat? If they're using formal language or if they're using emojis, or does that matter to you as a student?
I think teachers, I mean, you can tell they're people whether or not they're going to be using emojis and stuff. I liked Mr. Neal a lot because he would make fun of himself. But we also had other teachers who were in our group chats. Our leadership teacher was a lot more formal, and she she didn't try to moderate the chat and be stay on topic, you guys, outside of class or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But you could kind of tell you want to be on your best behavior around her. And we were still feeling like she was more accessible in chat than, of course, you wouldn't go and email her. It would just be an instant thing. I always had my Google Hangouts open. And if I wanted help with something, I had a problem with one of my friends, a bully situation, and I was able to just go and pull up a Hangouts chat and be like, hey, teacher, I have this issue. And it was so much like, I don't know if I would have even done that if I would have had to go and email.
That's fascinating. It's one less barrier. If it's easier to do, you're more likely to do it, right? So that's really cool to think about.
I feel like with emails, you have to be confident about what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's almost like writing a letter versus shooting off an email. It's just one less barrier and one level more of casual communication. You were telling me about Socratic seminar and how Mr. Neal in the AP Lit class started doing Socratic seminar with you guys. Can you tell our listeners what that is and what it looked like?
Yeah. So basically, when you're in college and you sit around a table and you've all read this book and you've all written down your like thoughts about it, and then you come to this table and everyone is like facing each other and you just kind of talk about the book and talk about what does it mean and what's the meaning of the work as a whole, and did the character grow because of this event or because of what happened after the event or whatever, like But I think that it actually works even a little bit better online, because what happens is you just have everybody like raise your hand and then it puts everybody in like numerical format. So you've got the first person who raised their hand and then they can talk without the rest of like 5 people who just tried to raise their hand to go first getting out of order and losing their spot. Right. So as a college student, I actually had a friend who was really shy and she was brilliant and she had a lot to say, but she was so shy. She would raise her hand and then like nobody would notice, and she would have her hand raised for like 10 to 15 minutes, just sitting there like she's not going to interrupt people. And I feel like she would have had a much better time of it trying to have this kind of conversation if she was online in the setting where you could have your hands raised in a numerical order and it would just happen very naturally. I feel like a lot of online students were kind of introverted and maybe shy and just didn't want to like impose a lot, and maybe that's why they came online, is because they were having some issues with other people, and so of course it would be easier to not have to be staring at everybody's faces while you're talking. And so I feel like that's one of the things that actually might work a little bit better online. And there's challenges, but yeah, Mr. Neal did it great. He wrote something down so that we could remember what it used to be like.
Well, it sounds like this class was really meaningful to you, and that you found not only academic engagement with the books and the literature and the academic discussion with your peers, but also that social engagement as well. And clearly that made it more memorable and something that you could bring with you to college, which is always a goal, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I think a part of what he was trying to do with that, he required us to remember the names of the people that we were referring to. If we were going to be like, yeah, someone was talking about the scene with the balcony, you had to say, oh yeah, it was Dree. Dree was talking about the scene with the balcony, and she made this point. And so then we like were really noticing like what other people were bringing to the conversation, which made it a lot easier to talk in the chat when we were in the group chat later on, just because we were like, we felt like we knew each other personally, which is so difficult when you're in online school. Yeah. Like you feel like you're in a void, and if you shout out into the void and something actually comes back, you're like, whoa, like I exist, you know?
SYS is an online management company that takes a different approach. We partner with schools to manage solutions. Whether you're a district adding an online option for students or an online school looking to go in a new direction, SYS Education can help make it exactly what you need it to be, with high-quality products at a fraction of the cost that schools pay to other companies. We are not just an educational consulting company. We are online educators ourselves and a tech team like no other. Let us help you bring your online school experience to the next level. Find out more at syseducation.org or by emailing info@syseducation.org. Set up your free consultation meeting to discuss how SYS might be able to help your school. We're back with Bree North, former online student and current online student. Before the break, we were talking about Socratic seminar, and that's a really effective way of engaging students online. Are there some classes you found had more value to you than others, and how did that look to you as the student?
Yeah, because there were some classes that you would go there and you're like, well, this is everything that I was just reading again. Like this is like everything is just review, and I'm not really catching it any more here than I would be just reading the book myself. Science was great because she would go over the same stuff again, and I just really needed it because I just needed the repetition of it. So I think it depended on the class. There were classes that just it didn't add any value to me because I just felt like I already knew everything and it wasn't adding anything.
What you said is really powerful because teachers often try to teach a lesson so that all the students get some of what they need, right? Like a review or a challenge or a chance to collaborate. But you're saying some of your classes were simply adding no value to your learning. And that's really important for us as teachers to think about. We need to consider each type of student we have before us and what we're taking their time up with. And is it helpful? Is it worthy of their time? And just thinking about that, and then also how much time. So I know technically you need to go to class sessions to make attendance contacts, essentially, in a fully online school. But we need to think about how much time. What is the must do this week or this day? And then that's what we should be focusing on and delivering to our students. So, students need access to different levels of live support too. So maybe we start thinking more creatively about who attends when and how often. I don't know. You've given us a lot of good food for thought, I think. So from your perspective as an online student, what does make an effective online teacher or an effective online course?
So it depends. It depends on the kind of class. Like what I said for science, like I loved that she went over the same concepts again. And I think what she did is she didn't take it straight out of the curriculum. She didn't take it straight off of the pages that we had already been reading, but it was still the same information. It was just put in a different way so that we could kind of come at it from a different angle.
Yes. I think we really need to condense that time and use it wisely with our students and be concise and clear and have a goal for the class and really work on it. But making it really clear and explicit, I think it's okay for us to be explicit with students too and say, hey, this is the goal I'm trying to achieve. I want you to understand the Civil War here, but I want you to know that it was happening in the context of the world. And here's what was happening in other places of the world at the same time. How did these relate? Or do they relate? I'm curious too, what advice you have for teachers who are talented educators, but are technology challenged. They never thought they'd be teaching online, never intended to, and here they are, stressed beyond compare, sometimes with their families working from home or their kids doing school from home. Do you have any tips or advice for those teachers who know what they want to accomplish and are just having a hard time with the tech?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of them are doing well. Like they're stressed out about it and they're like not very confident. But the ones that I'm seeing are they're giving it their all and they're doing really well. I think it's a learning curve. And I think it was even that for when I started going to online school. You just have to. It just takes a little bit to get into the saddle. In my Blackboard Collaborate session, we actually let students be moderators with the teacher because the teacher would be like, hey, I need to send out this file. I have no idea how to do that. And the students would be able to see what the teacher was seeing and say, okay, on the top, there's a file button. You click that, go down to options, and then on there's a file send out thing. But don't click on the second one. You have to click on the first one. And so that you could just like walk your teacher through it at the time.
That's great.
And it totally worked.
So like a host or a co-host. Okay.
Yeah. And they get to see everything that the teacher sees, the private chats, everything. So you would want to be someone that you trust. But we did that a lot in math, actually. We had a lot of student moderators in math. And the teacher was fantastic. We all loved her and respected her. But she was really bad at technology. And so we just, she always had like 2 or 3 of us, just in case one of us didn't know the answer. Because, of course, we're not going to all know the answer. There's a bunch of us who are also technologically challenged.
Right.
But she had a bunch of us, and she would keep us all in our own little moderator group that she would just automatically, like, say, hey, do you want to be my moderator today? And we'd be like, yeah, let's do it. And it also helped her kind of distribute some of the work. Because she was a math teacher, and she would ask everyone to private message her the answer to the question to see if everyone was kind of on track. And when you do that, the moderators can see it. So instead of having for her to go through every single answer of like 40 kids or 50 kids in a class, she would have, her little team of 3 or 4 people. She would make sure the team knows what the right answer is, right? And then she would send the team out to go and check everybody and say, hey, what's your thinking here? Like, because this isn't quite the right answer, and I want to know what's going on.
That's hugely awesome, because that's sharing control. It's such a good idea. And it's also building up your peers, and then building up your class community, because peers are depending on one another, and they're being able to accept feedback from one another and move forward from there. And it's taking that weight off of the teacher.
I think it's good for us to see teachers asking for help. I think it helps us a little bit to feel more important.
Yes, and to see that teachers don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
Teachers are perfect beings who are omniscient or something. Yes, I think that's really, that vulnerability and showing that vulnerability to our students. Obviously, you remember that still, and that left an impression. That's what matters. I am all about shared control. I think that really equates to shared ownership of the class. So if students are sharing and owning the course, they're sharing and owning their own learning. We'll have a resource again in the show notes, so our listeners can try this with student moderators or student co-hosts, depending on what platform they're using. They can try that strategy out for themselves. And I think a lot of our newly online teachers might really appreciate that. And I hope they take the dive and share the control with their trusted students, no matter their age, really. Well, as you know, some kids are online and teachers are online by choice, and other districts are mandating it for them. Everyone faces some barriers to accessing their education, regardless of whether they attend in person or online. What was the biggest barrier that you encountered when you were learning online?
So I was really well set up. I had my own laptop, and our Wi-Fi was really great. And for me, the reason that I didn't get my homework done a lot of the time, it was just that I had depression. It was horrible. It was like awful, terrible depression, and I don't really know what support I could have got. There was like one time when a teacher actually reached out. It was an advisor reached out to me, because I was at a proctored test, so it was in real life, and one of our advisors was there, and she noticed me, and she was like, "Girl, you need some self-care." And yeah, she was so sweet, and she stuck around. She kept on checking up on me after that. But I feel like it's so difficult to even express what you need. And I didn't know that, like, I would even talk to a teacher about that. I didn't realize that was something that they would care about. And even though it was affecting my schoolwork, I think that it's hard to be noticed when you're doing poorly, like on a grand scale of things. Like, you wouldn't really, like, if I was feeling depressed and stopped talking in class, like, the pattern recognition for seeing, Brianna's name isn't showing up on my screen today. Like, it's not going to happen as much as seeing, Brianna's head is on her desk. Like, she's obviously having a bad day. So I don't really know. I guess I don't know the answer for that one. I do wonder if screen time does it to you. I think there's like studies for that, and online school. Right. Like, what else can you do? You have to be online. But like, so. For my AP classes, though, I was allowed to read books offline. They like sent me, these physical copies, paper copies, and I would read those away from the screen. And like my science projects, I would do those away from the screen. And I think it does help to be a little bit away from the screen. Yeah, just to have a spot even away, or just that physical time away. And that kind of goes back to what you had said before about introverts and extroverts being online, and how you're noticed or how you get to participate, that kind of thing. I think that's essential for us as teachers to keep on the lookout for those harder to see or harder to observe mental health needs. Kids need to know who they can go to. It really stuck with me that you said you didn't know you could talk to a teacher about that. Like, you're an AP high school student who no one had explained that to you. And so of course you wouldn't know that. So we need to be intentional with reaching out to our students and being proactive instead of reactive, letting them know who they can go to or how they even do that. And I'm thinking also what you said about email versus chat. How can we make it the easiest thing possible for a kid to do, because we don't want to create another barrier either to them accessing that help. And so if listeners haven't considered that, I think it's an important conversation to maybe have with administration or just your support staff.
that's really essential. I'm so glad you brought up mental health. I think that's something we don't talk honestly and openly about very often, and something we absolutely need to, especially right now, because a lot of people are struggling, especially with COVID and financial experiences during this pandemic and changes we've had to life. I think it's really important that we remember the humanity and just name it and talk about it and let kids know how they can seek help. So thank you so much for bringing that up and for your honesty with us. It's brave and commendable.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was difficult to talk about at the time, and it's a little bit easier now. I think talking about it really does remove a barrier there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good. Oh, well, you've given such a gift to our teachers, and if any students are listening, to them as well. Well, we are almost to the end of our time together. Since you are part of the next generation of online teachers, which excites me greatly, what is your hope for online education of the future?
So my goal for a while, for like years, has been to be like Mr. Neal, like make connections between my students and help them like interact with the curriculum and interact with each other. I feel like it does feel a little bit difficult to inspire online students to connect and like interact and like pull them out of their screen a little bit, like bring them to life a little bit. But Mr. Neal did that like flawlessly. And the other thing I want to try and do, if I can get some electives, so my student council teacher, Mrs. Spencer, had a field trip, like an actual field trip that took like a couple days for her student council students. She got a whole hotel for us for the Oregon Association of Student Councils. There was a whole convention that they had with different panels by other students, and we learned so much there about how to be a better student council, how to engage other students better, what kind of assemblies actually add value to the student body, and what kind of, assemblies they're just gonna mute and go and watch YouTube for. And so the fact that, I met a bunch of my student council members for the first time at that meeting. I want to be able to be that teacher who pushes for that kind of thing for my students, to be able to not only add value to the stuff that they're trying to learn, but also add value to their connections as students. That's really what I'd like to do. I also want to work a little bit with the curriculum. I don't know how much flexibility I'm going to have. I feel kind of new to this, but
spoiler alert, you can. I'm excited to see what you create too. The Common Core standards definitely offer restrictions, but also freedom too. Some districts are more open-minded than others for sure, but teachers really can teach between the cracks, like you saw Mr. Neal do, and reach students in ways that they know work for the population in front of them, while also meeting their state's mandates. I have a book recommendation from episode 1. You might love to check it out, Bree. It's called Teaching Within or Teaching Between the Cracks. And it helps teachers do just what you're saying you hope to do. And I think that's a great picture for the future of online education, is that we're teaching our standards, but we're doing it in really responsive ways to our students and to the changing world around us too. All right, final question for you. What do you want the world to know about online students and online schools?
It's not easier. They're not easier. Everyone thinks they're so much easier, and they're not. They might even be more difficult. It's depending. The only thing is that it's just flexible. That's all, and that means that you can push yourself a lot harder if you want to.
Right. Yes, it is not easier. You're not watching YouTube. You're not just hanging out, clicking buttons on a computer at random.
There are some nice aspects, but it's not like you're just eating bonbons the whole day.
If only.
If only.
Bree, I agree with you so much on so many of these fronts, and I really had a great time talking with you. Thank you so much for the gift of your time and your insight into how students are receiving online education and what they really need and are desiring and wanting. It's been eye-opening and really informative. Thank you so much for talking with me today.
I'm so glad, because I've had a great time too. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you made it. Thank you for listening to this episode of SYS Presents Adventures in Online Education. Special thanks to my guest, Bree North, for teaching us how we can do our best work as online educators to positively impact our students' lives. Make sure to check out our website at syseducation.org/AOE for show notes and Bree's resources for you. Next time, we'll talk with online educator Maddie Dahl about how to use Google Slides in live class and for asynchronous assignments. Be sure to tune in. This podcast wouldn't be possible without our amazing team at SYS Education, including our producer, Bo Neal, and our talented sound engineers, Natalie Farrell and Matt Duran. Want more? Check us out at syseducation.org/AOE and find us on social media. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
Thanks for listening.